China, the largest population on Earth, the greatest transformation in history. But China's old economic model, exports built by cheap labor, is ending. Pollution is appalling and gaps between rich and poor are widening. China has new leaders. What changes will they make? Where is China's economy going? China, the largest population on Earth, the greatest transformation in history. Yet, change causes problems. This year, China has new leaders. Here are the challenges they face. China's challenges. I'm Robert Lawrence Kuhn. China's change is astonishing. For over 2 decades, I bear witness. China's economy is now the world's second largest. It will likely become the largest, doing in decades what elsewhere took centuries. But dramatic change causes pervasive problems. How can China achieve its goal of becoming a moderately well-off society in a world of turbulent markets, a society of social disparities, and an environment of epidemic pollution? This challenge is what China's new leaders face. 2 weeks after becoming China's most senior leader, Communist Party General Secretary Xi Jinping proclaimed, "The Chinese dream is to achieve the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation."
何谓中国梦？我以为实现中华民族的伟大复兴，就是中华民族近代最伟大的中国梦。
This series, China's Challenges, examines what must happen in China to make the Chinese dream come true. I'm Robert Lawrence Kuhn. I've worked with China and its leaders for 25 years. I wrote the book, How China's Leaders Think. In this episode of China's Challenges, I ask, where is China's economy going? I'm standing in the Shanghai Tower, a stunning 121-story skyscraper under construction in Shanghai's Pudong Financial District.
好，谢谢。现在准备好了。
I see construction sites all over China. China's economic miracle has been driven by investment and exports, supported by tens of millions of migrant workers who come from rural areas often far away. Migrant workers personify China's most divisive and intractable problem: the economic and social gap between rich and poor, urban and rural, coastal and inland. A gap that is growing, a gap that I know worries China's leaders.
Where are you from?
启东的。
Oh, Jiaxing. Oh, sorry. How long have you worked here? 多少时间你在这里工作？
来了2年了。
你喜欢你的工作在这儿？
喜欢。
为什么？
就是做的习惯了吧。
There is an old saying in China that when one ascends a height, one can see far into the distance. Here's what I see. China's growth model, cheap labor, low-cost manufacturing, and energy-intense, high-polluting industry has come to the end of its historic cycle. China's economy, built on the backs of poor workers, must be transformed. Lu Fei is from Jiaxing province, and like others, he starts work at around 7 a.m. Normally, he works 8-hour days, but construction is behind schedule, so he must work extra hours every day, even on weekends.
来上海，算起来嘛，也来很久了，不短时间了，大概有6年时间。那这个时候，我现在想一想，那个路上面都是车子一过去都灰尘大得不得了。我当时就想，我说上海也是这样的嘛，但是这几年嘛，就是不一样，发展非常快了。早上不是有个小学吗？多少？我们工人来自五湖四海，就是苏北啊，或者周边的地区比较多一点。偏远呢，就是有湖南、湖北，还有山西的都有。
Lu Fei is 35 years old. His 2 children remain in their rural town 500 kilometers from Shanghai. He's lucky because he can return home once a month. Other workers may not see their families for a year.
说实在一点，做人多赚点钱了，为自己小孩嘛。 以后能过得好一点。我们这代人吃苦嘛，最好让下一代多读点书。所以，我是这样想的。
Standing on the foundation of the Shanghai Tower, I wonder about the foundation of China's economy. I visit my friend, Zhang Weiwei, professor at the Geneva School of Diplomacy and at Fudan University in Shanghai. In the mid-1980s, he was English interpreter for Deng Xiaoping, China's paramount leader and architect of reform.
In the late 1980s and early 1990s, there was a sense of crisis within China. And that follows the downfall of Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. And many felt that China could be the next victim, whatever. But Deng said, no, this perception was wrong. That's the opportunity, that's the moment for China to excel. He said, seize the opportunity. More and bolder reforms and more market-oriented. I think that no country and no people have experienced this kind of change in living standards. 3 decades ago, when I was a boy here in Shanghai, we have this materialistic approach to life, to marriage, what's called the 3 essential things for marriage. In the 1970s, it's a watch, a bicycle, a sewing machine. By the 1990s, it's a computer, a mobile phone, a motorbike. But today, it's home ownership, a lot of cash, and a car. Good or bad, it's too materialistic. I know that. But on the other hand, it's one level of assessing China's economic success.
China's workers are in historic transition. No longer will they accept very low wages. No longer will they remain passive. So China's economic model of lowest cost manufacturing, wildly successful in its time, cannot continue. China's economic model must change, or China's economic miracle must end. Factories have powered China's economic miracle, so factories are what must change. Li is a migrant worker who works in the newcomer luggage factory in Jiaxing province. He's been away from home for 20 years.
之前是在广东，也是做箱包，也是货包。以前要工作15、16个小时，像现在一般是工作9个小时。10年前嘛，工资是1800嘛，1800，现在5000多一点。你生活水平提高了，我们老板也赚了钱嘛。
There are about 300 workers here. Just like Li's, their salaries have doubled in the last few years. Good news for the workers, but how can the company afford to pay such high wages? Newcomer Luggage used to do business the traditional way, making low-cost products for a major international brand. They didn't make much profit, and they couldn't much pay workers.
中国经济现在处于一个转折点啊，从过去这个30年的过去，特别过去这个10来年，中国加入 WTO 以后，很明显的带来的这个 WTO 红利、人口红利、这个城镇化发展引出来的这个房地产红利啊，这些这个粗放式的、简单的、快速的赚大钱，实现经济增长的时期呢，基本上已经过去了。
Along China's east coast, there are many enterprises that began like Newcomer Luggage. They developed as export engines, enabled by reform and fueled by cheap labor. Newcomer started small, with 30 sewing machines and a few dozen workers. Today, they have 3 factories and 3,000 workers. Manager Chen Xuebing has mixed feelings about today's not-so-cheap labor.
应该来讲，我们企业的话，因为在这10多年的发展中间啊，我们每年都是会扩线啊，所以每年的这个春节的招工呢，对我们来讲也都是一个比较重要的一个时间，也是我们说像打仗一样的啊。
To reduce the impact of increased labor costs, Newcomer automated its factories. Although machines decrease labor costs and save raw material, they can't compensate for shrinking overseas markets.
到了08年以后的话呢，我们感受到我们的客户嘛，他们这个确实是因为经济的不景气，使得他们这个下单的这个单的量和他们的这个周期呢都会变得比较短。
But Newcomer had a plan. Newcomer focused on creating their own innovative designs and their own branded products. They hired a team of 38 designers who developed new styles, colors, and features. Samples were sent to the stores. It was a success.
我开玩笑讲，我们应该也是，甚至比政府更早提出创新的这个重要性。 其他的兄弟企业就看不懂，他们觉得这样一个企业怎么能够生存？说，光电脑就有那么多。
Design manager Gao Pinghua realized that his customers now wanted new functions, designs, styles.
带有的技术含量的箱包，目前我们就是箱包上面带有称重的电子显示的称重的这个箱包，就是这个包现在是显示会0嘛。 对不对？里面东西放了之后，它会这个自动会显示会重，它会知道这个包它的承重是多少，在多少范围之内可以上飞机。目前来说，市场上在国内推出的话，箱包称重的话，目前是全球我们第1家。
This is Newcomer's flagship store in Jiaxing province. Only Newcomer products are sold here. Instead of gross profits of 20 to 30% making foreign brands, Newcomer generates gross profits of 70 to 80% designing and making their own brands. The difference in gross profit is huge. It's the essence of China's economic transformation.
如果我们想要让员工可持续的能够工资增长的话，所以我说我们要通过品牌的推广，我们自己掌控消费品市场，我们可以让我们的员工可以分享我们自主品牌在全球市场、在国内市场推广以后的收益。
For China to increase worker wages and reverse the country's dangerous descent into widening inequalities, many more companies like Newcomer Luggage are needed. But making innovation work in the marketplace is complex, expensive, uncertain, and unpredictable. Innovation is risky, an art more than a science. I've said as much to China's leaders. Failure rates are very high, so failure must be accepted, or innovation is impossible. In China, private business, small and medium-sized companies, drive the economy, generating about 60% of GDP and providing 80% of urban jobs. Although the government recognizes the importance of small and medium-sized companies, SMEs as they are called, policies continue to favor state-owned enterprises, particularly with respect to financing. This is a problem.
To me, one of the merit of the strength of the Chinese enterprise system is this SOE, or the state-owned enterprise, and SME duality.
Both private and state-owned sectors are needed. State-owned enterprises can expand worldwide. Of the 500 largest companies in the world, about 80 are now Chinese. In contrast, private companies are agile and entrepreneurial.
China has not provided enough support for those SMEs. And let me give you one example. So for instance, among the bank loans, only about 14.7% are offered to the SMEs.
Where there's demand, entrepreneurs will provide supply. Wenzhou in East China's Jiaxing province, just south of Shanghai, is ringed on three sides by mountains, making transportation difficult. Perhaps that's why Wenzhou people are ambitious and venturous, such that after reform, Wenzhou became the center of entrepreneurship in China. But how can these small and medium-sized companies finance their business cycles when China's major banks, which favor large state-owned enterprises, do not much lend to them? Here's how. Driven by necessity, an informal system of mutual local financing has developed, a private capital chain. Not legal, but not quite illegal either. This is the office of the Honglong Small Loan Company in Wenzhou, less than 500 square meters. It was the first and largest small loan company, lending to small and micro agricultural enterprises. In total, over 4 billion RMB, or about $600 million. They can set a market-driven interest rate, provided that it is under the legal upper limit. Loan officer Ye Chenjie is going to visit a pig farmer, checking how the farmer is using the funds.
客户想了解我们那个小额贷款公司，然后他们上门过来咨询一些我们贷款的产品啊，一些对他们一些客户的那个扶持力度之类的，然后我们再给他们做上门调查，然后形成一个报告。我们跟他们那些大的银行比起来，我们的优势是速度快捷，手续那个简单一点。
Zheng Fenghe has been raising pigs for 8 years. In 2011, using a mortgage on his home, he received a 400,000 RMB loan from Honglong to expand his pig pen. 1 year later, he wants to reinforce the pig pen, so he is applying for another 400,000 loan.
你这次这个钱借过去是放哪里啊？就是这边那个改造。
改造这围墙和小路。
先对于第一次来说，因为它这个抵押手续还是在有效范围内嘛，所以直接过来签个字就可以了，是这样。
对沿海来说，我们这些上农企业他们不怎么支持。像农村信用合作也是嘛，额度不高，去小额贷办公司还可以方便。
Honglong charges ordinary borrowers interest rates that can be 3 times higher than what banks offer. But what banks offer won't mean much if they don't make loans to small businesses. However, thanks to policy supporting rural enterprises, Zheng pays an interest rate only double that of the banks. Unlike officers of large banks who can't waste time with small businesses, Ye Chenjie develops good relationships with his customers.
去年这个时候什么价格嘛？大概？
去年这个时候高了，去年这个时候也9块多。
9块多，
今年下了1块多。
那差不多一头猪的话，要少赚300块钱了。
对。
Wang Jianqin is the manager of Honglong. He had worked in a state-owned bank for nearly 20 years, becoming a vice president. However, this Wenzhou entrepreneur saw the coming of financial reform.
我个人认为我们的金融体制改革远远的滞后于经济发展的速度。民间资本进入银行业金融领域，这是一个大趋势。
In Wenzhou, you see paradoxes everywhere. Luxury cars in rundown neighborhoods, abundant private capital, and capital-starved companies. When the economic crisis hit Wenzhou, the private capital chain was broken and many businessmen fled. A few committed suicide. Everyone was jittery. In 2012, China's State Council set up a pilot financial zone in Wenzhou, legalizing small loan companies.
假如我们能够跟商业银行取得相同的一个国民待遇，我相信我的管理能力，我们的这个快捷方便，我们的节约成本的这种做法，我肯定可以做到贷款的利率比商业银行还要低，而且呢，在这种情况能够取得跟他们是一样的资本回报。
We need risk takers in the financial sector because today the big banks are actually the risk averse. They didn't want to take any risk.
To have inclusive growth, you got to stop discriminating against the small, medium enterprises so they can get bank loans. You don't tell the big banks to lend money to the small, medium enterprises. The way to do it is you allow small, medium banks to be established.
Who would have thought that not quite legal banking could exist in China? There is resistance. Ideologues criticize private business, and the government fears financial risk. Yet the need to finance small and medium-sized companies is so great that the local practice has been made legal, though still limited. While financial reform in Wenzhou affects private business, financial reform in Shanghai affects China's entire economy. In fact, Shanghai's vision has global significance. Shanghai seeks to become 4 centers of international excellence: finance, trade, shipping, and general economics. There are high hurdles: fully convertible currency, rule of law, high personal tax rates, even the Chinese language. But what if? On the Bund in Shanghai, I speak with Fang Xinghai, director of the Shanghai Finance Office. The vision is that Shanghai will become a world financial center. First of all, what does that really mean?
Well, we want to be New York and London.
And not necessarily number 3.
Right now, I mean, the Chinese economy obviously is not that open yet. The RMB is not fully convertible yet. But in the future, let's imagine if the Chinese economy reaches the size of the US economy, and the RMB becomes a fully convertible currency, and the China's domestic financial markets become fully opened up. Then, of course, Shanghai can be at the same level of New York. We need to open up the financial sector for international competition a lot more.
That would force the Chinese banks to become more efficient.
That will force more competition, right? It will introduce more products, more ideas. I think it is desirable for China to let the RMB become a world reserve currency. Whether we can achieve that goal or not, I don't know yet, because that's going to be a very long process. But once we achieve that goal, obviously, I would think it is beneficial to China because it means you have more influence in the world.
Is that good for the world? I know it's good for China.
Well, whether it's good for the world or not, it depends on how China handles, that kind of power at that time. If we handle it in a cooperative way for the other world powers, it should be good for the world.
How do we look at the next 10 years, the new leadership, in dealing with the growth patterns of China?
China saves an enormous amount of capital. Right. More than 40% of the GDP is saved and invested. And that generates about 9% of growth. And we need to increase the efficiency of the financial system in terms of allocating capital. The only way to do so is to wage further market-based reform in the financial sector, to let the market system allocate capital a lot more, rather than let the government does the allocation of capital.
Are you optimistic?
I'm fairly optimistic.
If finance is the bloodstream of China's economy, manufacturing is its muscle. But not China's traditional manufacturing. Simple assembly no longer carries its own weight. Heading southeast from downtown Shanghai, near its deep water harbor, I come to a manufacturing center for automobiles, ship components, and power equipment. 10 years ago, this was all a beach. If China is to continue its growth, it must transform its manufacturing with technology and know-how. Cheap labor manufacturing is easy. Technology-driven manufacturing is not. I'm told of a factory that makes something essential for China's shipbuilding industry. Feng Jun is Deputy General Manager of the Marine Crankshaft Company. He's an expert in this technology, the first of its kind in China.
It used to be that China could not make a crankshaft with this technology, but this is the first place in China that's able to do this?
上海启用公司呢是中国成立最早、规模最大，也是技术最先进的这个企业。中国呢是一个大国，中国领导人曾经说过，在这个近几年呢，中国要成为世界第一造船大国。但是制约造船能力最关键是这个曲轴，因为曲轴是属于船舶的心脏。05年之前呢，我们都是进口的。 后来05年呢，国家成立这么个公司，主要呢就是实行，就是国家要实现曲轴国产化，打破国际的封锁。
China's economy is built on trade. Trade depends on ships. Ships need crankshafts. But turbulent world markets upset China's strategy.
What has been the impact of the financial crisis on your business?
现在呢，就是从08年开始吧，全球经济危机，其实造船业呢影响是最大的。主要表现在呢，一个是就是新船订单减少，再一个呢就价格大幅度跳水。
Still, the state couldn't let Shanghai Marine fail. Making crankshafts in China is so vital that even with high losses, the state covers them. And what's even more telling is that China's political leaders come to give their personal support. But once again, caution. Advanced manufacturing, especially at world-class levels, is far more risky than assembly manufacturing. For China to realize high ambition, China must accept high risk. But there are other business models taking root in China, where state ownership and domestic manufacturing are not the drivers. SANY is China's largest heavy machinery manufacturer. It's built on the twin pillars of private ownership and global expansion. When the massive earthquake hit Japan in 2011 and the nuclear reactors leaked, SANY sent a huge concrete pump truck to help cool them down. When the copper gold mine in Chile collapsed in 2010, SANY sent a crawler crane to help with the rescue. SANY misses no opportunity to enlarge its global footprint. In 2012, SANY bought a company in Germany and shook up the global industry. What drives SANY's international focus? I ask SANY's Vice President Yu.
SANY 如果不能成功的走向国际化，那充其量也就是一个比较大一点的个体户。作为任何一个世界级的公司，我们要为中国贡献一个世界级的品牌，这种梦想来说，如果不走向国际化，是不可能能实现我们这样的目标的。
In SANY's manufacturing base, I meet a salesman who just came back from Indonesia.
Who are your major competitors in Indonesia?
Hitachi, Komatsu, and Caterpillar.
How do you compete with them?
我们的价钱要低的很多，但是我们的质量在本地以速度快、低油耗等优点，得到了许多本地客户的认同。最大的挑战就是让客户在快速而短时间内的接受我们的产品和信任对我们的产品的信任。
But in a hyper-competitive world, doing business abroad must be backed by strong research and development, R&D.
SANY重机就是重机这一块，应该是我们的研发队伍的话有将近1000人的规模，绝大多数都是研究生毕业，当然包括了我们的行业里面的中外的专家。这个队伍我们有将近20人的外国专家队伍。
Before I left SANY, I asked Vice President Yu what he would say to China's new leaders.
民企也是中国的，不需要区分是在国有企业还是在民营企业，甚至一个个体户。中国的繁荣强大，同样都需要大家共同的努力。
But when going abroad, smooth sailing is not the norm. And so the government, which backs the global expansion with financing, needs to recognize the risk. Chinese companies can pay a high price for loss-making acquisitions. TCL's purchase of Thomson's TV sets, Shanghai Auto's purchase of SsangYong Motor, Lenovo's purchase of IBM's PC division. But failures haven't slowed the pace of Chinese enterprises acquiring foreign companies. In 2010, Geely Automobile purchased Volvo. The risks remain. There is a downside to economic growth: pollution. Environmental damage is the scourge of China, and China's new leaders know it. How to balance economic growth and environmental damage is a major challenge they face. This apartment building in downtown Beijing is the home of the Institute of Public Environment, IPE. With only 9 employees, its daily job is to collect environmental data from government websites and array it all into a China environment map. Ma Jun is the founder of IPE. Originally a journalist traveling around China, he realized the enormity of the country's pollution epidemic. I admire Ma Jin, this Yale scholar who has become an environmental fighter.
Ma Jin, we all hear about the severe environmental problems in China, but how bad is it really?
All these pollutions will have serious consequences. One of the most pressing issues is the impact on public health. When 300 million rural residents don't have access to safe drinking water, when increasingly the centralized urban water supply have been facing the contamination from the discharge, hundreds of millions actually of the urban residents exposed to badly polluted air.
Ma Jun is not exaggerating. I hear it from others. China's environment, water, air, land, has severely deteriorated. IPE was not timid. With others, they launched Green Choice, which tracks the environmental record of multinational corporations in China. The aim is to encourage, or to coerce, large enterprises to assess their suppliers' pollution and to make their supply chain greener. Green Choice has had impact. Many foreign companies are now managing their supply chains through the IPE database, which contains about 100,000 pollution statistics. GM, Nike, Walmart, Coca-Cola. IPE also prepares environmental reports of different industries. Its most influential was the Poisonous Apple Report, which targeted Apple. This is one of Apple's flagship stores in China. Beautiful products, but how were they made?
Tell me the story of Apple Computer, how a small NGO like yourself could change the policy of the world's largest company by market capitalization.
Yeah, it started in 2009 when actually it was Apple which singled out itself with its policy of not to respond to all these specific cases of pollution and poisoning. So we decided that we need to do some more on-the-ground research and investigation.
This is a video produced by Ma Jun that shows his investigations of Apple suppliers in China, how in several places they were poisoning the environment, and how nearby villagers were suffering.
So through months of investigation, we have found that there are breaching of commitments and even in some cases the legal standards by Apple suppliers. And after we published the first report, Apple published its own report acknowledging the poisoning cases, but they still would not confirm or explain all this respond to the cases we raised on environmental pollution issues. So we decided that we need to do some further study. one of the moments that I remember clearly is that 5-hour discussion in Cupertino, in the head office of Apple. One of the senior manager of Apple in the closing remark said that as Apple, we also need certain level of transparency in our supply chain management. That was the moment, because for a year and a half, that was what we are waiting for.
Ma Jun is meeting a friend, Li Bo, director of Friends of Nature.
然后现在呢，就是在整个这个系统里面有这个，就他们都被放到这个绿色选择的这个部分。现在可以看到，就是像佳能是相当差的一个，可以说是。然后这个 HTC 就是更差的一个。其实黑莓也很
是吗？
也很糟糕。但是呢，所以现在就是，我觉得就是这几个企业都是我们可以去。
China is the kitchen of the world, is the factory of the world. We produce everything, but we mess up our own kitchen. That nobody understands, nobody helps us. So, our economic growth is at a very high cost on the environment. Let's grow, but at the same time, let's also watch the limit of growth.
Reflecting this new environmental activism in China, there was a watershed event. These wetlands are in Nansha, in South China's Guangdong province. The Pearl River runs into the sea. 40 kilometers away is Hong Kong. Kids play here, breathing fresh air. The environment wouldn't be so healthy had it not been for a few stalwart locals who opposed state plans to build a massive petrochemical plant. It had seemed a wildly uneven battle. On the one side was the Chinese government, Sinopec, China's largest oil company, and Kuwait Petroleum, one of the world's largest oil companies. On the other side, well, a few professors, students, and citizen activists. Zhou Yongzhang is a professor at Zhongshan University. He and his students are visiting Nansha, recalling their fight to protect it.
广东省政府跟科威特那边有个谈判，谈就是说，的内容大概就是说，科威特可以在我们广东省内可以投资一个比较大的项目。
The project was to cover 8 square kilometers, and the investment was $9 billion, the largest of its kind in China.
广州当时有压力，当时就觉得好像国内有些大城市，很多城市在紧追那个广州的 GDP， 比如天津，追得很紧，所以当时有这样的考虑，就选择了广州。
After the project was announced, some began to protest. Few took them seriously. Professor Zhou, a member of China's national advisory body, was one of the earliest to object. Making his case, he asked the government to relocate the plant.
这里是广州的上风口，石化它都是有排放有毒气体的，污染性气体的，它就会往广州方向飘。另外这个地方呢跟香港也很近，这里再过去一点就是海边，海边对面就是香港，所以香港也很关注这个事情。
One minister told me that in the showdown between growth and pollution, growth must almost always win. The government, he said, must improve the economic lives of China's masses. And if some rich city folk would have to endure more pollution, so be it. After a protracted battle, all parties agreed to move the project out of Nansha. It was a shocking, massive win for environmentalists.
假如我们是建了这个石化基地的话，所有这些实际上是不存在的了。应该说，对南沙将来的一个重新定位和发展应该是非常有帮助、非常有好处的。
Nansha is not an isolated case. There are now many examples in China where environmental activists have successfully stopped government plans. Moreover, the Chinese government itself is actively readjusting its industrial structure to balance economic development and environmental protection.
所以中国应该说还是这种发展，就是从我们一般的工业文明往生态文明的跨越，我们还是看到了这一点。
On Saturday, January 12th, 2013, just 2 months after China's new leaders took office, Beijing experienced the worst air quality in its history. Particulate pollution less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter, which penetrate the lungs and cause respiratory diseases like asthma, emphysema, and lung cancer, rocketed up to 30 times the air pollution level deemed safe by the World Health Organization. In Beijing, the toxic haze was so thick that even from across the street, one could not see the many skyscrapers. Almost half of China's mainland was encased by the poisonous smog. People feared they'd be hit on the road. Breathing masks became the latest fashion.
从雾霾开始吧，就前一段时间，就感觉身体不适，想睡眠呀。
你要不要上电视？
整个都不好，让他们很少出门。今天是中午带他们出来一下。
就我以前在北京读书啊，感觉北京这边的天气的确那个雾霾天气、阴的天气比较多，然后比我们老家那边要差一点。但是后来我到西安去工作，然后就发现这西安那边的天气更差了2个等。
现在都霾对人身体不好啊什么的，所以我们就注意点吧。因为我为什么不戴口罩啊？戴口罩不戴镜子嘛，都是哈气，戴不了口罩，所以就有时拿围脖就挡上点吧。
An ordinary winter morning in Beijing, traffic jams and white-collar workers rushing to work. And yes, indeed, a mask is now a must. The Chinese people today are no longer passive, quietly enduring their fate. The Chinese people are angry. Even state media went critical. People's Daily called the smog a suffocating siege. Global Times said China was risking long-term damage. China Daily demanded balance between growth and quality of life. Professor Pan Xiaochuan, in the School of Public Health at Beijing University, sees the link between pollution and disease.
我们最近刚有一个绿核的报告，跟绿色和平组织的报告，我们是北京、上海、广州和西安4个城市做了一个。根据那个的最新的那个研究，结果呢是像北京地区，每增加10个微克立方米的 PM2.5，会造成这个人群超额的这个总的死亡率会增加大约3%。那么我说的是增加10个微克立方米。那么我刚才说了，前几天的话，北京差不多1000了，那也就是10个微克立方米的100倍了。那也就是说，相当于增加30%的超额死亡率了，是吧？在这样一个浓度下可能会，是吧？
To experience firsthand the catastrophic air pollution, I decide to venture out. A coat, scarf, and hat are always normal for a Beijing winter. A face mask is the new normal.
This is astonishing. This used to be pure clean air during the Beijing Olympics in 2008. But here, this is the new reality. Some of the worst pollution the world has ever seen. It's called the Beijing cough, and you can feel it in your lungs. The particles, the 2.5, that's very, very fine, that just enters the lungs and just adds a heaviness. Who knows what the long-term implications are? Some people in Beijing actually are happy about the pollution because they say this is the first time the leaders of the country and the common people suffer the same problem. In no other way are the leaders and the people similar.
China's air pollution is no mystery. It's the direct byproduct of unbridled economic growth. To seek truth from facts in Beijing, I again meet my old friend, environmentalist Ma Jun.
Yesterday, according to the Central Meteorological Department, an area as large as 1.3 million square kilometers of our land have been shrouded with smog. And that has obviously exposed hundreds of millions of people to this pollution. So this has caught the attention from the public and also from the government.
Noxious air is not new to the Chinese people, nor to the Chinese government. In 2011, responding to public outrage, the government began building hundreds of pollution monitoring stations in more than 80 cities across the country.
At the beginning of 2011, when the government issued the first draft of the revision of ambient air quality standards, they announced that PM 2.5 would not be monitored and disclosed. But then, people made such an uproar on the internet during those smoggy days in 2011, and at the end of that year, the government changed its policy and issued a second draft saying that all this, not just PM 2.5, but ozone, carbon monoxide must be monitored and disclosed. So in just about 1 year of time, more than 80 cities started its real-time monitoring and give people an hourly disclosure of the data.
Beijing now leads the country in air quality control. Across the city, there are 35 monitoring stations. Emergency measures including shutting down polluting factories and banning the use of government vehicles. To Ma Jun, recognizing the seriousness of the situation is itself progress.
We started seeing all these apps, developed, and before there are only those private developers. They developed the app, but now it is the government. The Beijing government for the first time developed an app for people to download. We can see this is the Temple of Heaven. There's a monitoring station here, very close. We can see it reads over 300 on the AQI. I should say this data could be viewed as embarrassing to the government. But at the end of the day, the top leadership decided that this data should still be given to the people. I think it shows that they put the protection of people's health ahead of the protection of the face of the government. So I give credit for that.
Ma Jun says that the key to change is transparency. Covering up or playing down the facts infuriates the public. Secrecy is no longer an option. If the government does not tell the truth and tell the whole truth, the people will find out anyway, and so much the worse for the government. Shanghai, China's most prosperous city, cannot escape polluted air. This is the Lujiawei Financial District, and in one of its skyscrapers, I meet Tang Min, who teaches Chinese to foreigners. After class, Tang Min works as an air quality volunteer. This is a campaign initiated by ordinary citizens to check the air quality index on a regular basis. Results are uploaded onto social media instantly, thus alerting citizens about air quality in real time. Public access to the data, however, is just the first step.
空气污染 掏开的，每个人都得接着，不管你是穷人、富人，你是领导还是平民，每一个人都应该承担责任。关键我觉得这强调这一点。像这次事件，我觉得他对政府可能是敲响一个警钟了，是吧？就是应该认识到这个人的健康啊，在什么时候都应该是第一位的，要人的健康以人为本嘛。所以宁可经济慢一点，你要把这个健康的问题你要考虑好，就是在科学发展的时候你要把它规划。首先一个规划好啊，那个现在我们国家我觉得这个经济布局啊什么这些东西考虑的很少，等到真的一建起来，你刚才讲就先污染了，已经污染了，然后再治理，很被动。
China, the largest population on Earth, has come to an historic turning point. China's new leaders, led by President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang, must continue to improve the lives of the Chinese people. That's the Chinese dream. China must reduce income gaps, transform its economic model, allow more market mechanisms and less government edict to allocate resources, liberalize financial markets, confront the vested interests of state-owned enterprises, energize entrepreneurs, reduce severe pollution. It's a long list. China's new leaders know they must deliver. The Chinese people know it too.